Yeah, please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
So, can we do a recap of what we did last time? Do you have any challenge concerning what we did? Okay, so I believe everything is okay with you, so we can proceed. Okay, so I think um, last time this is where we got to. We were able to complete this. Okay, so we got to extending Python. Okay, so we got to extending Python. So when it comes to extending Python, we are talking about adding some functionality to Python. Okay, so for now you already know function, right? I believe you know what a function is.
Yes, please.
Okay, so who can tell what is a function? Where is a function? What is it about? Mm. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm asking function. Who can define a function for? So, so I believe you said you understand. So not just you. I just want to understand it. What do you understand? So just tell me what. Not just defining what a function is, but I just want to understand. Mm, yeah,
Uh,
Nana.
yeah, functions. Okay, like my understanding. In they are like basically in Python. They are uh, s- they are should I say statements? Like they are statements that I don't know when you call them. They are callable statements, Bisa.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I think you that well. Yeah. Kwame, do you have anything?
Okay, so functions are like statements that help the user interact with like the code. I don't know, makes it easier for the user to code.
Okay. Okay. And so I think you're saying something. So it's good. So now, um, in nutshell, I want us to look at the terms are very, very important. Okay. So I just want you to really understand the terms. Now, when you say statement, okay, now a Python statement will be like maybe a line of code. Okay, so within my function, I can have a line of code within. That's the statement. Okay, so if I have this, let's say this is a statement. So this is, we can say this is indented statement for the for. So this is a line of code. It's a statement. Okay. So when you are referring to a statement, simply means you want to refer to a line of code. Okay. So if I want to be specific to this line of code, I will say this is an indent. So I can say that indented statement in the width. Okay. So this one is the with function. So you can see here that with and then open function. So I can look at indented statement. That I'm talking about this line. So all the ones here. So one statement within the indented loop. So I'm talking about maybe the for loop. So the statement that comes under the loop. Okay. So just get the terms very clear, so you don't miss them. Now the next point is, I'm saying that what is a function. Now function simply means that it's a package. Okay, so it's a reusable code. It's like maybe I want to write a simple code just to print something. So what we said that in Python we want to avoid repetition. Okay, so instead of me writing the same code over and over again, I can just group the code. So in other way, you are grouping the code under one umbrella, under one name, so that anytime you call that name, you can duplicate that code within what other part of your program, but not to write entire script again. Okay, so that is called a function. So function help us to be able to duplicate our code, okay, without what writing the entire code. Okay, so we just call the function name. So other term we use for a function is a reusable code. A reusable code means that I can call it anyhow. So even if I want to write the same program again, I don't need to start from scratch. So I can just call my function name and use it in the other part of the program I want to use. Okay, so that is the understanding of a function. Okay, so anytime you are thinking of a function, so for instance, we have a function like print function. So print function is already embedded in Python. So we just call that function and use it. Okay, so it's just a package of code that somebody has already written. So when we call that function, we can then use it in our program. Another one is the int function. Okay, another one is the input function. Okay, so these are all functions, call them reusable code. So you just call them and you use them in your program wherever that you need them. But those one are what we call predefined by Python, like the print functions and all those things, input function. These are what Python has done. But then you need to customize something to suit you. So extending Python functionality, we are talking about how we can also create our own function without relying on Python. Okay, and then I also told you in the beginning that everything about Python is about classes. Okay, so extending means that how can we create our own classes instead of relying on Python classes. Okay, so that you can have command in what you want to do. So if I have an idea and I picture the whole idea in the form of an object, now I can write my own code based on the algorithm that I derive from my idea. Then I can just put everything in a flow chart, which will guide me to write my script. Okay, so basically that is a function. Okay, so when you check here, like you see that the simplest way of extending Python is by writing your own function. Okay, so if you want to start with the function, we start with the function definition. So you can see that when we started, I was just writing simple function like def. I start with the def, which is def. Then that is what we call define or called definition. So you see that you can define this in the same file as the code, okay, that you use them. So for instance, I can just create a model or a folder, and then I can create a different file within them, and later on I can them into my program. Okay, so that's basically what we are saying here. So we can go into some of them step by step for you to get the understanding. Okay, now when we want to create a new functionality in Python, okay, the first thing is you need to define your own classes, or you want to define your own functions, or you want to define or create your own object from the classes that you've created. These are some of the things that we want to go through. Now, another point is you realize that when we use the help function, the help function was able to give us some form of information. So how do we get to know all those things? So in programming or in Python, we use the word doc string, that is document string. So we want to go into that so that at least we'll be able to know how to work with these things. Okay, so I'll move from these documents, and then I'll just take my time for us to go through step by step. Once you get the understanding, now you can go over the document, what information that I've given to you, and then you can read those ones. Okay. So first thing, we will still use I will still use the prompts. Okay, so I'm using my shell. Okay. Hello. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. So to define a function, let's look at the basic definition. So the function start with def. Okay. So def space, then you bring the function in. So this one is the function definition. So I'm just defining the function name. So I have my function name that I want to get like grades. Okay, so this is the function. Okay, now inside of this one, we can let the function have a parameter. A parameter is like we defining like a variable within a function. So we use the keyword parameter. So you define a parameter here. So my parameter will be name, so that I can assign a value to the function. Okay, so when you do this, we call this one a parameter. Okay, so at this point, I will place my column here. So the column here tells you that it's like when you are using maybe Java or something, like you start with this. If it was Java, you have carry grades or C++. Okay, and then you do something like this. Okay, so because of this, it's just going to give me an error, but let me come here so that I can do that for you. Because I'm using a command, then based on that, your code will be inside that. Okay, I hope it's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when you open and close brackets like that, the rest of the code will be in there. Okay. So for instance, let me try to see if I can do that. Okay. So this is what I mean. So it still will not work. Okay. So if it was Python that we were C++, then you do open and close brackets and calibrate, then everything will be inside it. But with this one, it's different. Okay, so we replace that one with what we call column. So the column will create an indent. So it means that all the code that you write will need to be in there. Just a minute. Oh, sorry. I'm still using my. Sorry. I needed to move to the share mode. Sorry. It did not draw my attention. Okay, so let's move to now. This is where I needed to move to. So I was still at the command there. So now I'm inside my interactive mode. So I could write that script. So now I have here, this is Python. So then I have my definition, which is grid. Okay, so my grid is like this. Then column, which will be other language, will be open and close. Okay, so now I'll move here. So now inside of this, I need to write my code here. Okay, so now this is how you define your function. So I've defined my function here, but you realize that there is nothing here. So if there's no information here, you cannot pass a value to your function. Okay, you cannot pass a value to your function. So when you call your function, that will be just like that. So for here, if I say print, so I can just pass a message here, and then I will say welcome. So what this function does is just to greet, just to say welcome. Okay, so if I call my function, so this is how you call your function. You call your function, you call the function name. So this one we see calling function. So to call a function, you call the function name. So here I'll just call the name greet. Now, even when I say greet, because this function is not returning anything, just printing the message in there. Okay, so the moment I call greet, you will see that welcome will come. Okay, but you realize that this function is limited. So in order to add some functionality to this function, we need to pass a parameter here. So a parameter is another way of saying a variable. Okay, so pass a parameter here that you can assign a value to it. Okay, so I'm going to pass 1. Okay, so I will start my function again and say def greet. Okay, and then this time I'm going to pass a parameter. So I will say name. Okay, my column. Okay, so now with this column I can break down. Okay, so when I come here now, I can just get my indents set up by typing on my tab key. So here, you remember that when you use the help function, it was giving us some information, right? So we call that dot string. So for instance, I just want to see how my function is working. In case maybe I've written this function as a developer and you want another developer to use your function, like the way we can use print and input function, is somebody who did that, and then we can get information about input function. Okay, when we pass input function in help, it will give us information about the input function. So the same thing that we can also do, okay, with the function that we've created, okay, so that we'll be able to get information out of it. So to be able to do that, we call this one dot screen. So now I can provide this one here. If you can see here, when you provide this 1, 2, 3. So now this is what we call, so I can place my document in this. Okay, so for instance, I will type a document here and say display. So display a greeting message. So greeting message. So this one is anytime I call my function, this is going to give me this information. Okay, so now I want to give some information to that. So what I want to do is that this function is just going to return. I hope you remember the return. I say when you define a function without returning anything, it will give us what? What will it give us without returning anything? What will it give us? None. I hope you remember.
Yes, please.
Okay. So now we
Okay,
want
now.
the value. So I'll place this one. I'll use the formatting string here. Okay. I hope you remember the formatting string. So now here I can type a simple message within this. So my message will be hello. Okay. So hello, and then I can add some information from what I want to do. So I will say maybe hello, then I'll use it because I want to use the variable here, okay, or what we call in function, we call it the parameter. So I want to use the parameter here. So I will use the placeholder to hold whatever that is here. So now I can type the name here. Okay, so like this, and then come down to the next point. So with this, I'm done with my function. Okay, so now this is how you define a function. So now I'm able to come up with a function. Okay, so now if I want to use the function, that's where you need to call the function. So let's say calling, let me see, calling greeting, calling greeting function. So calling greeting function here, you call the name of the function. So for instance, I can call the name of the function like greet. Okay, so greet, and you can see that this greet contains it contains something. What are it contain? It contains a parameter. Okay, so when you call here, whatever that you type in here at this point, before this side, when you are defining your function, it is called a parameter. So this one's the variable here is a parameter. And then when you are calling, you are now providing a value. So the value, we use the term argument when it comes here. So I need to provide the argument. So sometimes it tell you that you have like two arguments. You need to at least provide one if you check some of the ones that you already know. So from here, I need to provide an argument. So what argument that do I need to provide? For instance, if I want to type this one without providing the argument, let's see the error that is true. So you can see here, missing what? One word positional argument. I hope you've gotten that. Hello.
Yep.
Okay. So it's now telling us that we've missed because we provided a value. So it's expecting that we give some form, we store some data in the memory space that we created. Okay. So in that value, when it's in function, we use the term argument. So now I need to provide the argument to this. So by saying, because I want to use a name, so I'll use a string value. So Kingsley. Okay. So when I run this code, you will see that it will now come here. Hello Kingsley. And where is it from? It's from here. So the return type. So now you can see hello Kingsley. So now I can use this function anywhere. Okay, so that's the way we sample. So maybe I don't need to write the whole code again, like this code. So anywhere I call this function, it will work. Okay, and then it will also tell me that the value that I have here is a string value. So you can see that it's inside the code. So the beauty of using the interpreter here is that actually always it will let you know the kind of information that you pass it. So you can see that the information that we pass out is a string value. So that's why you saw that it's inside what the quotes, if you can see. If I use the print, print will not give me exactly. Okay, so if we are writing the code like here, we are using an editor. In that case, you have to print it out. Okay, but because we are not using an editor, we don't need to print anything. Just type it and it will come. Okay, because we are using the interact symbol, we are all using the interpreter here. So definitely, the moment we type anything there, it will give you the information that is. So for if we want to use the print function, let's say print and then replacing greet. So replacing greet and greet what? We pass our parameter, our argument, sorry. So our argument will be a string value, which is, let's say, Kingsley. And in this case, you will realize that nothing is showing here. You can see that you won't know that this is a string or not, because you will not see the quotes. Okay, you won't see the quotes. So if I decide not to print it directly, in that case, it's going to show me, let me know that the type of value that I've passed through. So that is the main reason why for now I'm not allowing us to use the editor for now. I want us to really understand every process. So using the interactive, you know every process that goes on. Okay. Now you can see here, I'm just printing the message, whatever information directly. You can also store this one in maybe a variable, and now we can just call the variable name. So instead of me maybe calling the greet function directly, I can just assign it to a variable and then call my variable. So another way of getting the information from your function is by assigning it to a variable. So I can create a variable by saying name. We can use a new variable name, and then name, our assign name to greet. So greet, and then I will place my value inside, which is my argument. Now here will be this. Okay. So once I come here, now you see that if I really want to see what is inside, I need to call the name. So once I call the name, you see that it just got it. So now anytime I call the name here, I will have that information in there. How is clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So in nutshell, this is how you create your own function. So depending on what exactly you want to do. Now, this function that we created here, we can see that you realize that I gave an information here. You can see here that display a greeting message. So what this one we call this a doc string. So document string, because it's a string. Anything in the code is a string and it's a document. So you document the function, what exactly it does. So if a third party get hold of your document, your function, that person can use your document as a guide to be able to write the code. Because last time I told you about commenting. Now when you comment it, it's directly for you or somebody who have access to your source code. Okay, so if in case I don't have access to your source code, but you just package everything, okay, somewhere, and then I'm just importing it, in that case I may not know you're commenting. So what will help me is the dot string. Okay, and then we use the help function. Remember the help function, we'll be using it. So if I place my greet function that I just created inside my doc help, it's going to give me the information. So let's say greet. Okay, now you see that it just gave me what? Now you can see here, it says that help on the function greet module. So now you can see that the greet function that I've created here, it has what? You can see that it's having what? One word parameter, if you can see. And then inside that, it shows that displaying what? A greeting message. So it's the same thing that you can get from if I say help. And then this is what we've done. Python is having input function. Let's say input. Okay, so Python input function. This is not what we just created. This is what Python is having. So now you realize that it's giving us input function and it's telling us that a built-in word function input in the module bulletin. Then tells us that it prompts. Mind you, I told you that input function prompts the end user. So you can say read a string from what? A standard input. That's why I said any value that comes from a input function come as what? A string. Okay, so the prompt string, if given, is printed to a standard output without what? A trailing new line before reading the input. Okay, so that is input function. Okay, we know about another one called help print. Okay, so if I see help, so these are built-in function. Okay, and say print. So in that case, you see that we have access to print. So now you can see the print. Do you remember we've learned about separate? I hope you know what a separate means. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. You remember the separate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember the end, the new line. They say by default, it has the new line as you can see here. And then by default, the separate is the space. I told you that. So now here you see that everything is showing there. So by default, and then this is the argument that you can pass to. So initially, if maybe I say print, you can see this is the argument it takes. Then it can take a separate. So this is the default one that has been set. And then it has been set end with this. And then the far is none. Far is none means that it doesn't exist. So when I provide it before it will work, and the flash is false. So we don't need to. So these are the default value to a stream or system.out, that is standard output, okay, by default. I hope it's clear. So now you can see the definition of what a separate is, what the end means, what a file means, and all these things we've already gone through them. But just that the help function help you to really understand all this. So this is a document that the Python they've written for a print function. So when you want to use a print function now, you need to understand the document. So that's the main reason why we are going through this series. So when you really understand and you are using it, you know exactly what you are doing. So you've already went through this. So anytime you've gotten any module or any function you want to use, you can just use the help function to get more information about that particular function. Then it will just tell you what exactly that function is for and what you needed to do. Okay, so that is basically what I really want you to understand in terms of this. So now we've created our own function called greet, and then we've given a doc string that is a document string, okay, that can help any developer or any person who will get access to our function, okay, so that the person will be able to know how to use that function. Okay, I hope it's clear.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So let's continue with the other thing. So now we already know how to start a function. So if I want to create another function, all that I needed to do is to start with def, okay, and then my function is just to add, let's say add. So I can place an argument. So maybe just to add two things at a go. So maybe I can place a parameter like number underscore one. and then number underscore 2. Okay, and then I'll come here and end this line. So this means that now I need to write my string. Okay, so my string is just going to give you a document that tells me. So I can say that a function to add 2 items, okay, or sum up 2 items. So here I will just say adding 2 items, okay, or adding 2 items. Okay, so this is just a small note that I'll give you. So anytime you take this function, you know exactly what this function does. Okay, so now I'll go to next. Now I can provide exactly what it do. So now here I can also add, maybe add, and then with the add I will just see number. So here what I needed to do is that because this one is like this, you just want to add, and you know that everything that we are doing here, that we are just doing hard coding. So I just go straight to say number 1 plus number underscore 2. Okay, so once I'm done with this line, the next line is to return. So I can return a statement, okay, by saying return, and then I'll put my f function. I want to use the f string. Okay, so inside that I'll type maybe number this plus number this. Okay, so I just want to use the same thing. Okay, so I have number underscore 1, okay, plus number underscore 2, okay, and then I will use the equal to, okay. So let's leave a little space here so that you get this. I believe you understand this code. You understand?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just that I want to show the number that we input there should come here. Okay, but because it's a variable, I can place them in a placeholder. And then addition side, I want to show it here. So that it will just give me the total. Okay. So once I'm down here, I can just close this line. And then so calling a function. So to use a function, you need to call your function name. So here I'll just say calling add function. Okay. So now with that, I can just call add and then place a value in there. Let's say 10 and then 20. So 10 and 20, here, when you run this one, you can see that now it's just giving me some message here. Okay, so you realize that I did something wrong, right? What I did was, when you check here, the top there, you see I did hyphen hyphen. Okay, so it's telling me that what I just did, the number 2 is not defined because I use hyphen hyphen, and then that hyphen hyphen is not the same. I hope it's clear. Hello.
Hello, yes.
Are you following the error message?
Yes.
Yeah, so you see that on line 3, I did the add. Okay, on line 3, I did the add, but in line 1, I defined a variable. But you can see here, the variable I defined was number underscore underscore 2. Okay, and then when I go to line 3, I just say number underscore 2. So you can see that it doesn't exist. Okay, so it just throwing a name error. So this one is a name error. So you see that we have a value error last time what we did. Okay, so this is another error by say name what error. It means that my naming is wrong. So I need to do the correction before it will work for me. Okay, I hope it's clear.
Yes, please.
Okay, so to make this one work, I have to come here and now change this. Okay, back. Okay, so now with this, I can just move in there and then type my add. Okay, so these are supposed to be. So for the doctrine, I'm not writing it, but I hope you understand it. So just want to show you this one here. So 1. Okay, so this is how it will be. So now with this one, I can now call my function. So if I call add, and then I'll place in the value that I needed to place in, which maybe I give 10, 30. Okay, so 1030 will actually give me the value. So you can see that 1030 is giving me 10 plus this. Okay, because we pass everything through a string, so that's why you see that the string is showing there. Okay, I hope it's clear.
Yes,
please.
please.
So with this, you can create your own function, maybe for addition, for multiplication, for whatever that you want to do, or maybe you have a formula that you want to work with and stuff. You can do that, but always for the purpose of this class, anytime you create your own function, try to add a dot string. That's the standard. Maybe if you are working with a company, they require you following that because your code can be used by another developer. So always you need to document everything. That is the standard from industry. So you need to make sure you provide all your doc string and you don't just write code. So you do all your comments. So in case maybe today you are not there, another person can take over the project that you were working on. Okay, so you take note of that. That's always when you are writing your own function and stuff, you need to provide those information. Okay. Okay, so now one more thing that we also need to look at is what we call generators. Okay, so we have generators function. Now we understand what a function means. We'll go into detail function somewhere, but the basic is what is important for now. So we have what we call generator. So we have generator function. So generator function can help us to generate a series of numbers. Okay, so let's look at how we can write our own generator function. Okay, so to write our own generator function, we can define a function by the way we do define a function. Okay, by this time we use a keyword which is the generator keyword. Okay, but what the generator does is it return a value one at a time. Okay, so if maybe I want to generate 100 numbers, it's going to return this 100 numbers from 1 up to 100. So it does not forget any process. Always keep in memory the processes. Okay, so if maybe you have an idea of creating your own function, that will not jump processes, but a recognize each step where it was before and start continuing from that to the next point. We call that what a generator function. Okay, so a generator function use a keyword. This is what the keyword, this is what does the magic called yield. Okay, so the yield is what does the magic. Okay, so the yield is what does the magic, okay, for a generator. So this yield function. So instead of me maybe whatever that I will generate, maybe print it or return it, we use the yield, okay, to be able to do that. So now here we are not going to return any value. Like the normal function, you need to return a value. But when it comes to a generator, we just use the yield, okay, this keyword yield to be able to return. So this yield will keep every instance. So any state that has gotten to it will keep remembering what what it was, where it has gotten to, and then it will add up. Okay, so that is what we call a generator function. So let's define a simple generator function. So we still continue with the same understanding that we do about function. So start the function by defining the function name. So this one, I'm going to use a function name like count up to. So I'm going to here say like count up to. Okay, so that is my function. So every function is supposed to have in front open and close square brackets. So every function name should be open and close brackets. Okay, so now once I'm done here, you can pass a parameter. So the parameter I want to pass the maximum value. So I can say maxi underscore value. Okay, so this a parameter that I've provided here. So with this one, I can also provide my doctrine. Okay, so the doctrine will tell us what exactly this function is all about. Okay, so now I'll provide my doctrine, and here I will put in what this function is all about. So this function is going to generate numbers. Okay, so it's going to generate numbers maybe from 1 up to the maximum value. Okay, so that's what it's going to do. So here it's going to generate numbers from 1 up to the maximum value. So that is what exactly I'm going to choose. So if I have a number, then I have from 1 to the maximum value. So generate number from 1 up to maximum value. Okay, so this will serve my doctrine. Okay, so now I can generate my numbers, what exactly that I want to generate. Okay, so to generate a number, I will be using the while loop to be able to do that. So I can do my initialization. I hope you know that while loop starts with initial value. So my initial value is 1 because I'm saying to generate a number from 1 up to the maximum value. Okay, so now I start with my initial number where I want to start from, which is 1. Then I can use, now I'm going to use the while loop to be able to do that. So I could see while, so while number is less or equal to, that is the number that we want to actually provide. Okay, so the number that we want to provide is what we've assigned here. Okay, because you are writing a function means that anytime you can input a number. Okay, so it's not something that you want to fix, make it a fix. Okay, so I will start here and say maybe like this, while n is less or equal to maxi value, maxi underscore var. Okay, so with this one, I've already done that. But I hope you remember that when we start with the while loop, you need to do one thing. That is what, who can remember?
The increment,
You need to do what?
the incremental.
The incremental. Okay, we need to do the incremental because you need to add the incremental to that so that you'll be able to add them, okay, as you go on. Okay, so that is fine. Okay, so we can add the incremental to that. Okay, so now what we will do is that like what we are seeing here is that either I can add, sorry, okay, so I need to make sure that I add that line. So it's still giving me the index. Okay, so you let me start from here. No problem. So now I have my first line here, which is the count value here, and then I'll need to put in my doctrine. Okay, so my doctrine will be simple, just to so it will be generate numbers from 1 up to maximum. Okay, so with this, I can add my number to it. So what I want to add is to add my initial value to that. So my initial value that I needed to add is the n. So I'm using, you can use any variable name. Okay, so that would be n, and then I now can use my while. So I will say while number is less or equal to the maximum. Okay, that is the maxi underscore number. That is what I've provided value. Okay, so with this one, I need to indent it. So now with this indent, the rest of the code will come in the while loop. Okay, so the rest of the code supposed to be inside the while loop. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use the yield. So the first one, it will yield the end. So in the first line, like when it comes here and it's true, it's going to yield the end. Okay. Now after that, I need to do the increment. Okay. So now I'll bring my increment to it. So what do I need to do? Okay, what do I need to do? Who can help me? Who can help me?
N is equal to n plus 1.
Okay, n equal to n plus 1. So, like I said, that one can also be written in the form of this. I'll remember because the n is just duplicate. So, always we try to avoid duplicate. I hope it's clear.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, so now we've been able to write this code from the now here. So now we've gotten our yield function working here. So I can just come out of it. Okay, so now I'm done. So now I need to call my generator. So let's say using the generator, let me put here using generator. Okay, so using the generator, now I can just call. So now to be able to do this, I can use the for loop to help me to get this thing done. Okay, so I can write the for loop like say for num. I will remember that I'm just using this as a variable. Okay, for now in what? In the function that we just created. So in counts underscore up underscore so up underscore 2. Okay, and then we can provide a number. So let's say we will provide like 10. Okay, inside. Okay, so now this actually is the number that we've provided in our count, like this count. Okay, so if I count here and then come to inside this, I can now give my number and say now. Okay, so that is what actually will be iterating. Okay. So now you see that I'm able to generate a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we call this generator. You realize that we did something like that using the what the range function, right? So range function has been created by Python itself. So we can use that, but we can also create our own function, like what we have done, to do something like what the range function is doing. I hope it's clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is so we've combined the while loop. We will know that while to deal with the what do you call it, repetition. So instead of generating 1, 1, 1, I'll place everything in 1, and then I will give a condition. So the number that you provided, based on your condition. Now this is what is doing the magic, the yield. The yield means that every process that it goes through, it keep in mind where it has gotten to. So when you start 1, you know that it has gotten to 1, so it will add the next line to it. So instead of if we are printing directly here, it will not work for us. So the magic is yield, and that's what we call a generator function. Okay. Now the next function that I really want us to look at. So now we actually know how to generate our own function. We know how to create a simple function by defining that function. Now let's move on to another one by calling we in other program you might see like anonymous function. When you use the word anonymous, what comes in mind? Learn the English word, forget about programming. Anonymous. What comes in?
Unknown.
What? Unknown, yes, unknown. So something unknown. So sometimes you will be having unknown function that in there. So how do we do that? So in Python we use the term lambda. Okay, so when you see here lambda, okay, so lambda function, okay, like what you see here, is also known as what unknown, okay, function. So these are unknown function. So instead, you already know that when it comes to function, you define the function name, okay, and then you use it. But here we are not going to start with the function definition and define the function, then you give a name. So we will use the lambda, which is an unknown, to be able to do. So maybe I want to square a number. So let's say square. So I can provide a variable called square. Okay. So square, and then I will assign it to lambda. So with this lambda here, I can now provide my argument. So my argument is maybe x. So this is the parameter that I'm giving. Okay. So inside that parameter, you can now provide your. So you could see that when we start with other function, you can have this one, then you move on to next. But when it comes to lambda, everything is continuous. So after the column, then I will give the argument like what exactly this parameter will do. So I will start with the same x because I want to square. So x times x, okay, which will be x squared. Okay, so that is what it does. So in that case, I'm done with my function here. Okay, so once I call square, like the way you have here, square, once I call the square, and then you provide a value, let's say, I just provide, let's say 3 inside and run this. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so now here you could see that it came what 9. How we can see. So what is it doing? We just use the lambda function here. So instead of maybe writing the whole function and then now come in and do this one, in the lambda function, just a simple with the keyword lambda. So like the way we use the keyword yield, you use the keyword lambda. Then you provide your parameter column, then what you want to use it for. Okay, so I can have maybe 1 year, and then you can add a value to it. So depending exactly what you want to do. Okay, so for instance, we did the addition, so we can start the add. Let's say add function like the one we just wrote at the top there, add, and then I will do my lambda. So with this lambda, I'll start with maybe number underscore 1, okay, and then number underscore 2, okay, and then column. Then what I want to do is that I want to say number underscore 1 plus number underscore 2. Okay, so in that case, when I come here and say add, and then I'll just place my maybe 2, 4 inside, and then you see that it just added. So this is lambda, what you actually want to do. So you see, we call this anonymous function, and we use it a lot in applications. Because some points you might not need to write a whole function like this. You can create your own lambda function here, which is anonymous function, and then you just allow. So now this one that you see here is not the function. Here the variable that you assign the value of what you just created to. So when you call that variable, you can apply whatever that parameter what you gave here, which is called the argument that you gave, parameters you gave here, sorry. So based on the parameters you get, it will let you have your argument in there. Okay. Do you understand? Hello.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. So basically now we actually know how to define our own function, how to use a generator to generate a series of numbers, and then we've also learned how to use the anonymous function. So just the keyword lambda is what you need, and the parameter column, what exactly you want the function to do. Okay, so that is lambda function. So now we've gotten understanding of a function. Let's look at classes. Okay, now we know that when we want to define a function, the function comes with the function name called def. Okay, so what about if I want to create a class? What do I need to do? Okay, so a class also need to have the class name. Okay, like what actually for now, what we know. Okay, so when you want to create a class, you start a class with a class name. Now, let me ask you one question. When you hear a class, what comes in mind?
Whether the value is a string, integer, or float.
Okay, who else? When you hear the name class.
It's the same as you have said.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I told you that Python is all about object-oriented programming language. Okay, now what exactly you once said when you hear a class, you think in terms of the int, the object, whatever. So that is exactly what you need to think in terms of, because object-oriented programming language. So like the ints and all those things that we went through when we were creating a variable, and then where any variable that we create is a class on its own, it's an object. And when you check the object state, you see that it has a class. So if it's a string, it has a string class. If it has a integer, it has an integer class. So that qualifies it as an object. So those are a built-in classes. But now, if we want to create our own classes, then we need to learn how to create our own classes. And when you create a class will give you an object. Okay. So you think in terms of objects. Okay, so a class supposed to have what we call a method. Now, last time I told you about a method. What other name can you give to a method? What other name can you give to a method? What other name can we give to a method? I will remember behavior. Behavior. So like the behavior of the object. Okay, that is the method. Okay, so the behavior of the object, that is the method. So a class is supposed to have a method, that is the behavior. And then we look at the properties. Okay, so a property in our case, we think about attributes. So what are some of the properties of maybe a person? A person may have a property like mouth. You may have your eyes, your two eyes. You may have your legs, and all those are your property as a person. Okay, so in that case, it's also an attribute. So attributes is property. Okay, so a class person is having an attribute or a property. And what are some of the properties that a class person may have? One, you may have your head, you may have your mouth, you may have your hands, you may have your legs. So these are properties or attributes, okay, that accompanies you. Now, based on these attributes, it needs to perform an action. So the action that it can perform is what we say method. Okay. Okay, so your methods are what makes you that hand. Okay, we know hands. So if your hand is there and the hand cannot do anything, mostly what do we see? If I have a hand and I can't use it to do anything, what will come in mind? What will come in mind? Like I have the hand, I can't use it for anything.
Please, you have a hand.
Yes.
Stroke.
Stroke. Yes, stroke. So it means that that hand is dead. Okay, so stroke means that it's dead. Okay, because once you have the hand, it's supposed to perform an action. Okay, it's supposed to do something. That is what we call behavior. So the behavior of our hand is to maybe move. You can raise your hand up. You can stretch your hand. Okay, you can use it to eat and stuff. That is the behavior of a hand. So if I have the hand and I cannot move the hand, I cannot stretch and stuff. Basically that hand is dead. Okay, so it's in the dead or state. Okay, so we think in terms of a class as an object. Okay, so to define a class, we start with a name called class. So if you want to define a class, you start with this name, class. It's a unique name. Like if I want to define a function, I'll start with the name def. Okay, so class, that is small letters class. Then you come with the class name. So here the class name that we can think of is what we, so always start with capital. So I was talking about person, so I can say person. Okay, so that is the class name. Then I have my column, so the column will come. So this is how you create a class. So start the class name, then but the class name should start with a capital, not a small letter. Function names always start with small letters. You can't start a function name with a capital letter. So function names always start with small letters. Class names always start with what? Capital letter. Okay, then I have my color. So with this, let's start writing a proper class. So I'll start with class, then I'll give what? Person. Okay, so I've started with this. It should be my indent. Now I can write my doctrine. Okay, so always it's very, very important. So I can put my doctrine. It can be a single quote, a triple single quote, or a double, a triple, double, a single quote, or a double, triple quote. Okay, so I'm using it, doesn't mean that always it's like this. You can also use the single and it will work the same way, like this. You can do this. Okay, and then it will also work. So I can say a class to present a person. So let's see, class to present a person. Okay, so that is my doctrine. Okay, so I'll just have to close that. Okay, then I'll move to the next point. Now, with the next point, we start with what we call def. Okay, then I'll do underscore init, call init, then underscore. Okay, then you have your square brackets here. Okay, so now you always here, you can see that the init here, we start with the self. So I will explain everything to you. Then here I'm going to pass some name. So now this what I'm passing here is called the property or the attribute of the class. So now I can say name. So now a class may have a name like the object that you have, a name, and then maybe age. Okay, so this is the init. So now init here is initialization. So we call this one is a constructor. So that is what starts the whole class. So you provide initialization class called constructor class, and that starts the name. And every class what we call constructor should start with what? Self. Okay, so you have a self, then you provide other property or the attributes that the class is supposed to have. Okay, so for now mine is going to be like this. Okay, so once you are done with this, you move to the next. Oh, sorry. Supposed to do the indents. I forgot to place the indent. Okay, so I'll start with this, and then let me copy this one here. Okay. Okay, so now I need to copy the next part. What I'm doing that is the int. So now I need to provide my color. Okay, so this is also a function, but at this a method. So now we call this one a method. So the difference between a function and a method is that a function is not having self. So when a function becomes part of a class, you have this keyword self, and that self make the function now term as what? A method. So now we see that we've created a function. Here, when we did that, we did not provided anything self. So if a function like this, if this one without self is known as a function, at the moment you see the keyword self within a function, it's no longer a function, but a method. That is a method. That is a function which is part of what? A class. So a function which is part of a class is called method. Okay, and it has a keyword self. So that is the difference between function and what? Method. Okay, so now you come here and then we now provide the instances. So now I need to initialize all these ones that I have here. So we use the self to initialize the values that we have here. Okay, so I will see self dot name. Okay, and then you assign it to name. So you initialize them. Okay, then you have another self dot age. Okay, and that one too will go with what? Age, which means that age is assigned to age. So now with this, with the self, this one will be part, this attribute will be attached to what? The class. Okay, now we've initialized everything, these attributes now part of what? The class. That's what we use the self. So you can see here, name yourself, name yourself. So now we've created this. This is the initial method. Okay. I hope it's clear. If you don't understand, kindly let me know. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm asking you you gotten the understanding.
Please go over again from the self dot name.
Okay. So now what I'm saying is that to start creating your own class, a class has a keyword class. Okay. And then you give the class name. Okay. Once you are done with the class, you need to start the class. You need a constructor. A constructor is just a starter. It's like a key that makes the class work. So that coordinates with all other functionality of the class. Okay, so it's like you're a human being. What coordinates all activities in the body? What other organ coordinates all the activities in the body?
The brain.
The brain. Okay, so this is the brain of the class. Okay, so you call this initial. That is init. Okay, so now you define your initial. So now it's going to coordinate all other properties. So now the properties of this person that I'm going to. So what does with the coordination is the self. Okay, so init function is supposed to have self. Okay, so now with the self here, then give the properties. What are some of the properties that you want your class to have? Maybe it needs to be have a name, and they also need to have age. So now you need to initialize those properties by using the self keyword to help in the coordination. So now I can say self.name. Okay, so now I need to now assign this name. You already know this. I need to assign name to the self, and the self will relate it to what? The class. Okay, so that it will always remember that it has this property. So now I can say name is assigned to name.self. Okay, then I can have age is also assigned to what? Age.self. So now this can do the coordination to remember it. I hope so. You think in terms of object, just look at how coordination works. Okay, so in this point, we've already assigned each property to the class. Okay, so anytime that we needed it, we can use the self to call that within any part of the program. I hope it's clear.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so in the nutshell, we call this one a constructor. Okay, so the def init, this one we call it what? A constructor method. Okay, and what does it do? It helps us to initializing what? The attributes. So these are the attributes, and I said the attributes are what? Properties. So this constructor help us to what? Initializing what? The attributes. Okay, so for in this case, we only have what? Two attributes. That is what? The name and the age. Okay, so we are doing the initialization. So the self, now we use the keyword self to do the initialization. So that is what we have here. Okay, so now that we've gotten the understanding of this, that we've been able to create our class. Okay, now let's continue.
Question, please.
Okay.
Yeah, please. That would mean you said for this one we are having only two attributes. That means there can be more like contained in the bracket.
Yeah, you can have more attributes. You can
Alright.
have more attributes. Okay. Okay. So with this, I'm done. So now, because we are seeing an object, so now I can write an object, say person, let's see, person 1. Okay, and then I'll use, now this is the class name. So you start with the class name, start with the capital. Okay, so you write person, then it knows that what attributes is this having. What are the attributes? It having what? Two attributes. Okay, so because we've already we've already assigned them to the class here by using the self. So now when I type this class inside of this, I can now type my name because we've done that here. So now I can put my name here. Let's see, Kings, and then I can add the age, which is, let's say, 30. Okay, so so we call this one instance of a class. So here, so this line, what I've just created is called instance of a class. So instance of a class, what comes in mind? When you hear the word instance of a class, what comes in mind? What comes to mind? Hello. So instance of a class. Yeah, I'm asking you that when you hear the word instance of a class, what comes to mind?
Instance. An example.
Yeah, instant like a copy of. Okay, I'm giving you an instant of you of a class, like a copy of. So now we are creating a copy of this class. Okay, which is what we call objects. So a copy of this is what we call object. Okay, I hope it's clear.
Yes.
Okay, so if you call this object, you can get every information from this object. But you realize that what we just did here, now I have my initial, but then you can see that with this function, what I just did, there's no method, okay, or let's say a behavior, what maybe I can use to control. Okay, so but this one is just the init function that we just created. Okay, so now if I call, let's say, person 1, now you could see here it's showing at what object. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not telling that this is an object. So this is the state of object that I have. And then by then it doesn't have, so let's see, let's use help. Let's use help. And then come here and see person 1. Okay, let's see something. Now you could see that it gave us what? A class what? Built-in what? Object. Then you can see person, the name and age. Okay, a class to present what? A person. Then the method definition. I realize that the method definition we have for init, that initialize method. So this one initialize self. Okay, I hope you can see that. Okay, and or whatever that we've done here, I can also do the same thing because I told you it's an instance of the class, which is an object. So let's use the main class. You know, the class has a definition. The class starts with what? A capital P, right? Right.
Yes.
Yes.
The class and see what we get. So you can see that we have the same thing. I hope you can see the same thing here. So that is the copy of, so I can duplicate it. I can have person 1, person 2, person, and then if maybe you have a different attribute, different method, you can just use them. So that is what it means, that we've created an instance of a class. That is a copy of the class, which is the object. Okay, so when we check the state, you realize that it's an object. So I can have maybe person, I can have person 2, and then I will assign it to the same thing. Let's see. Person, and then I'll have, so here will be different. Let's see, maybe Kwame. So the name will be different, Kwame, and then these objects will be a different thing. The age will be, let's say, 20. Okay, so these are different things that you can see. But you can see that what we just did, we did not create the method for that. Okay, so I want us to add a method, then we can call it. For now, we already understand the process. We know what it does. Okay, so now we know how to access the attributes. Now let's add a behavior, like what this function can do based on what we just put. Like it's supposed to a class to present a person. Okay, so I will continue with the line here. Let me still copy this one just to save me from writing this again. So I will start here and then do my color and come and add my constructor, which is the init. So I'll add my init here. So instead of here, I will just add this init function. But the init function start with the def. Okay, so I need to make sure my course is a file, is a method. Def definition. Okay. And then I'll close it with a column. Now I need to do my initialization. So I need to assign each property. I need to assign each property to this. Okay. So to do that, I'll start with self dot name assigned to name. Okay. Then I'll add this. That is self dot age. So we are attaching every property to the class. That's what I'm doing at this point. So which is age. Okay. So for now we have them. Okay. So what I wanted to do is that I want to start a new function. So I'm going to start a new method, and this method is called def. Okay, what this method will do is to be able to greet. Okay, so going to create a method for greeting. We did this one for a function. Okay, so now you need to have what we call self. Okay, so realize that the difference between the other one we did and this one is that once you have self here, it's no more a function. It's what? A method. Okay, so I have that one there, and then I will come here and then terminate that, then come down and then be able to, I can also add my docstring to it. Okay, so to add my docstring to this one, I can also create, I forgot to add a docstring here, but no problem. So I can add it to here. So docstring will be here, which is creating the functions what I wanted to do. So create with the person name. So I'm going to do that. So let's say create with the person name. Okay, so that's basically what I want this. Sorry, I'm using the single quotes. It needs to be throughout. To greet with the person name. So now I will come down and then add that. Okay, so I'm using the L formatting string to be able to do that. So I'll return. So I'll return F formatting string. Okay, so what that I will do is that I will just start with hi, I am so and so, and blah blah blah. So let me put this one in there and see hi. I am. Now I want to use placeholder. So I am Kingsley, but you can see that this one is not having any property within this one, but we can use what the main class is having. So if I want to use the main class, I'll use the keyword self. So you use the self to call that. So I can say self, okay, dots. What do I need to do? That is name, what I have here. So self.name will give me that. And then I can add another, maybe you want to add my age. And I'll say and I am. Okay, now you could see that because we are using this one here, we need to change our string here to double quote. If not, we will receive an error. Okay, because it's going to just close with the first one. Then last time we did that, if you remember. So now change here to double quotes. Okay, so whatever I'm writing here to see that part of the string. Okay, so I am. So I am. So now I'm going to add the age to it. So I'll put in this and then I'll type in self. So sorry. So self dots. That is the age that I want to call. So now I can use myself to call the age. It's self dot age. Then I can place what? Yes. Old. Okay, so this actually will help me. So now I have my initial method here. That's the initialization for the class. And then I've created another method just to do greeting. Okay, so with this, I can come down here and then close. Okay, so now to be able to call to create an instance of the class, I'll just use the word person, person one, and then I'll call for the class name, which is person. Okay, and then what do you have? So now you can see that we have two properties here. So now here we can now add that here. So that is going to be what? The name that I want to provide. So Kingsley, and then the age, which is, let's say, 30. Okay, so I've created this one. Okay, so if I want to, if exactly I want to see what exactly is done, maybe I want to create a person. So let's say, let me create another person, person two, and then person two is another instance that I'm creating by this one. Say person, open and close, and then I will use the word here, Kwame, and then I'll assign this to Kwame, which is a 20. Okay, so to be able to greet you, now I've created the object, so I can say person dot. So we use the dot operator here to call the behavior. So what this one does, the behavior, and then the behavior is what exactly this one can do. Okay, so I need to call the behavior. That is the behavior is the method. So I'm calling this behavior like this one, person two. If it's person two that I've just created here, I will call the behavior which is self. Okay, So now I can say great. Okay, so when I call greet like this and then run this code, you will see that it came here. Hi, I am Kwame and I'm 20 years old. Okay, that's very simple. I call for person 2. So now person 2 will ask a person 1 will also give me. So now person, because you are different name, you are a person. So when your mother gave birth to you, he gave you a name and then you have an age. So I can see here, you see, hi, I'm Kingsley and I'm 30 years old. So that is an object, and each object comes with what? A property. And based on what the object can do, you need to also have a method, which is the behavior. I hope it's clear.
Yes, please.
Okay, so everything that we be doing here, all about Python is all about objects. Python is all about objects. So the variable which has already been created in Python itself is all about object. So there's a classes for all those ones. And when you want to add a functionality, you also need to learn how to create your own classes, how to create your own functions, how to create your own methods and stuff. So we'll go into more details and do more work, but I think the basics that we've done today, I will entreat you to take your time and go over them again. I will send a video. Kindly go over and watch them. Okay. The notes that I gave when you come here, use just the definitions, but you won't get all those. So you can see the function name and then the parameter that I was talking about. So you can see I have parameter 1, parameter 2, and block, and then you can see the function block statement. So you can see function block statement here, and that comes within this code. And if a function it does not return any value, it's none, which I've already explained that to you. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so today I did only go through all these things for you, but then you can take your time and then read the rest of the material. Let's see, because what I explained is the same thing to this. So you can take your time and go through. I've done the summary. Okay, so you can create your own, you can add and create a function maybe to generate odd numbers. You can do that. Create your own function to generate odd numbers. You try this exercise, next time we meet, you have to show me what you did. So create and using the function. So as you can see this one, just get the idea, come out. So this actually is working with a gradient. Okay, a gradient of, as you can see, when you come to number lines, the gradient. So this is a formula work. So we work through this. That is the example of this. Okay, and then we went through the range function, as you can see here. So you can also try your hands with this. So you'll be able to use the range function to be able to generate something like this. Okay, so how this one is, we are just repeating this line and stuff. So can we do this exercise? Try your hands on this up to 5. Okay, do this. Once you're able to go through this, I think you may get any other questions, and when we meet, I can explain it to you if there's any questions. So try your hands with this simple exercise, or you can even change it with something different or any other formula that you think you want to write a function for that. So anytime you call that function, you can solve a problem that you maybe you want to solve for you. So basically, that is it. You already know the almighty formula-less quadratic equation and all those things. That is inside your calculator. These are some of the things that have been done and installed in your calculator. So when you punch it, it actually do those things for you. If you're a science student, rather than because scientific calculator, there are a lot of formulas that have been inputted in there. So you can also use the same formula to come out with your own kind of calculator that you can use to solve some of the scientific questions that might arise. So basically, this whole function is all about. It's all about reusable code. Anytime you hear about function, just think in terms of reusable code. So something that you want to package, and it also help us to avoid repetition of code. Like as we started, we always want to avoid repetition of code. Okay, so we can use function to be able to help us to deal with that. Okay, and the class is all about objects. So when you are creating a class, you think in terms of objects. And I said Python is all about object-oriented programming language. So anything idea that you want to, whatever you want to take in terms of doing on your own,